In a shocking clash at this week's PMQs, Rishi Sunak accused Keir Starmer of compromising the UK's national security. With China ramping up military activity near Taiwan, Sunak wasted no time in hammering Starmer for his government's perceived inaction, implying that Labour has weakened Britain's defences against foreign threats. The Prime Minister called out Starmer on his alleged failure to fully implement measures designed to prevent foreign state interference, stoking fears that Britain could be left vulnerable. Starmer, clearly rattled, tried to defend his stance, arguing that Labour would challenge China where it's needed, but Sunak wasn't letting him off that easy. In a fiery back and forth, Sunak doubled down, accusing Labour of lacking the strength to protect the UK from external threats. This dramatic confrontation came just days before Foreign Secretary David Lammy's trip to China, with Sunak demanding clarity on whether Labour would confront China about its escalatory acts. Now let's check out a clip of this explosive exchange between Sunak and Starmer on national security.
Now, the last government also established a new system of registration and monitoring to protect the UK from interference from foreign states, including China, Russia and Iran. Called the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, it was described as essential by MI5 in the fight to help keep Britain safe. But since the Prime Minister took office, he has halted its implementation. Why?
That isn't correct.
Rishi Sunak.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that is very clearly what the government has said. And only last week he said at the dispatch box that he would give the security forces the powers they need. And if he is going to fulfil that promise, I would urge him to get up to speed on this issue and therefore implement the scheme. Furthermore, Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee have warned that British universities are increasingly a rich feeding ground for China to exert political influence over us. That's why we passed the Freedom of Speech Act with new powers to help defend universities from this threat, but the new Education Secretary has since blocked it. So can the Prime Minister tell us how, without this tool, the government will prevent Chinese influence over our universities?
I really don't think party political points on security and intelligence. Honestly, throughout the last Parliament, we stood with the government on all questions of security and intelligence because it was important to the outside world that we did so. I worked with the security and intelligence services for 5 years prosecuting cases. I know firsthand the work that they do as a lawyer. I've known firsthand the work they do as the Prime Minister. We support them in everything that we do, and he knows that.
Wow, what a heated exchange. It's clear that Sunak is pulling no punches when it comes to challenging Starmer on how his government is handling threats from China. Sunak's accusations of Labour dropping the ball on national security are bound to make waves, especially as Foreign Secretary David Lammy prepares for his high-stakes visit to China. So, what do you think? Do you side with Sunak's concerns over Britain's security, or do you believe Starmer's approach to handling China will prove effective? Let us know in the comments below. While the PMQ's drama grabs attention, behind the scenes, Chancellor Rachel Reeves is quietly planning one of the toughest budgets in recent years. With a £22 billion financial black hole inherited from the previous government, Reeves is aiming to raise £40 billion through a combination of spending cuts and tax hikes to avoid real terms cuts to essential public services. Sources close to the Treasury suggest these measures are necessary to keep public services running at current levels, but the decisions are likely to be unpopular with voters and businesses alike. At a cabinet meeting this week, Reeves reportedly told ministers that the government faces difficult decisions on spending, welfare and tax if it wants to uphold its commitment of no return to austerity. Yet, speculation about a potential increase in national insurance for employers has already sparked outrage from the business community, who warn it could cripple the UK's economic recovery. The government has been careful to stress that any national insurance hike would only affect employers, not working individuals, meaning Labour wouldn't be breaking its 2024 manifesto promise not to raise taxes for working people. But this hasn't quelled fears among businesses, especially in sectors like hospitality, that are still struggling to recover from the impact of the pandemic. Business leaders argue that a higher national insurance burden on employers could result in job losses and stifled growth. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, has warned that Labour's £40 billion goal will likely require not only tax increases but adjustments to borrowing rules. Some Treasury officials are reportedly looking at applying national insurance to employer pension contributions, which are currently exempt from the levy, as a way to raise significant revenue. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, while sidestepping direct questions about these potential tax rises, has maintained that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the brunt of the financial burden. This rhetoric, designed to assure voters that the wealthiest will pay more, has yet to fully ease concerns within the business community. With just 2 weeks until the October 30th budget announcement, Reeves and the Labour government will need to carefully balance the books while keeping their political promises intact. The public will be watching closely to see how Labour handles the mounting economic challenges. As if the budget drama wasn't enough, Labour is also under fire for a £160 million cut to the UK's next-generation fighter jet programme, Tempest. This programme is a cornerstone of Britain's future air defence strategy, set to replace the ageing Eurofighter Typhoons by the mid-2030s. However, the budget for Tempest has been reduced from £1.46 billion to £1.3 billion this year, sparking accusations that Labour is compromising the UK's defence capabilities at a time of heightened global threats. Tory Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge didn't hold back, calling the cuts a dangerous signal to Britain's adversaries, particularly in light of Russia's continued aggression and instability in the Middle East. Cartledge argued that cutting defence spending is the wrong move, especially when the UK needs to bolster its military readiness. In response, Labour has insisted that the budget cut was a result of joint planning with industry partners, not a sign of diminished support for the project. An MOD spokesperson defended the decision, saying the funding reduction reflects revised estimates of the project's activity for this year and that these fluctuations are common in long-term projects of this scale. Still, Cartledge and other critics remain unconvinced. They argue that Labour's focus on domestic fiscal challenges is overshadowing urgent defence needs and warn that this could lead to setbacks in developing the cutting-edge fighter jets that are crucial to maintaining the UK's air dominance. The question now is whether the cuts are a one-off adjustment or a sign of deeper defence spending reductions in the future. With the October 30th budget fast approaching, there's little hope that additional funds will be allocated to defence, as Reeves is focused on closing the £22 billion financial deficit. But critics, including Cartledge, are pushing for a commitment to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, ensuring that the UK remains prepared for the growing threats on the global stage. As this debate unfolds, the stakes are incredibly high for both national security and the UK's industrial base, which depends on the success of the Tempest project. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more political scandals.